Welcome to TypeScript FM, the friendly podcast for TypeScript developers where we bring you news, updates, and interviews from the community with plenty of tomfoolery sprinkled in. I'm your host, Kamran Ayub, and I'm joined by my co-host and best bud, Eric Onerheim. Together, we're the two TypeScript fools. Welcome to the show.
Welcome to the show. Welcome to the show.
Hey. How's it going, Eric?
How's it going? How you doing?
Good. I watched the Microsoft Build conference last week. In and out. I watched the keynote for about an hour and a half, and then I caught most of the talks in the evening because my wife will watch documentaries and Arrested Development, and I will watch conference talks at night.
That sounds familiar.
Yeah. But it was pretty interesting. I mean, obviously the entire thing was agents, AI, et cetera, so you can safely ignore it if that's not your cup of tea. But since I've got to teach people some of this stuff, I did watch a whole bunch. There was a talk by the OpenClaw guy, Peter. There was a talk by Swix, which I still have to watch. It's about how agent supervision is going to be the new skill.
Mm-hmm.
And then there was some Microsoft talks. One's about GitHub Copilot CLI. So one of the things that I did right away is I was trying out the GitHub app, the new one, and it's pretty interesting. Did get some stuff done with it actually this last weekend. But yeah, that's kind of what I was exploring, I should say.
Mm-hmm.
How about you?
I've been turning the crank with OpenCode. I just got the OpenCode Go subscription where you can do their hosted Quen, 3.6, whatever.
Yeah, the open models. Yeah.
The open models for super cheap. And they're definitely feeling very much like Opus or Sonnet responses. So I've been having things do code review. I think a lot of my thesis around this has been use it for code review and avoid writing new stuff without a lot of scrutiny. So I think retrospectively, I've been using it as a code reviewer, and it's found a ton of stuff. I've found a ton of bugs, just mountains of them. I mean, I go through and I verify. I'm oh yeah, that is a bug that's been in there for years. I've found tons.
We're talking about a pattern matcher that
Mm-hmm.
is, pretty good at statistical analysis.
Mm-hmm.
It can find bugs pretty dang well.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's one of the use cases that makes sense for
Mm-hmm.
LLMs. And then I was doing a little benchmark over the weekend. I was chatting about it in the Discord, but I wanted to migrate, and this is related to TypeScript. Don't worry, but we have Lodash, right? And so I was using the replacements.fyi, which is powered by the E18E initiative. And we featured this site in another episode. But you can type in one of your dependencies and it'll suggest if there's an alternative available. So for Lodash, one of the alternatives that's available is ES Toolkit. And it's way faster, is way less impact on your bundle size, which is what I'm trying to optimize right now.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so one of the things, though, is that it has a code mod for migrating to ES Toolkit /compat, which is a one-to-one TypeScript interface for ES Toolkit that's compatible with Lodash. So you can just swap it out, right? Which sounds cool. I pushed that onto the PR. That took me 2 minutes to do. The thing is, though, is that does not really affect your bundle size. So it didn't actually get me towards my goal, which was to reduce the bundle. So in order to do that, I have to fully migrate all of my Lodash code, what used to be Lodash, to ES Toolkit. And that's over 100 files with over 200 build errors if I just swap it out, the references, right? Now, who wants to do that? Right.
No, that's a great example of a crank turning exercise that has a very defined scope.
Exactly. So give it to the clanker, right? So I used it as an opportunity. That's what Peter calls the agents clankers, which I like. I like that terminology. But I was using it as an opportunity to test out local models, right? Because it would be great if I didn't have to pay for that migration. But I had some luck. The best model that I found that gave me the best result so far is the Qwen 3.6 27B dense model.
Mm-hmm.
But it is slow,
Mm-hmm.
and it's a chug-a-chew. And even with GitHub Autopilot on Copilot, it can recover from errors pretty well, but it reached the max context. And so when that happens, you got to start a new conversation, because by the time it reaches its max context, you can't compact it, right? Because you've already exceeded it. So in order to compact it, you have to send it to the model for it to compact it. So
Mm-hmm.
lesson learned, maybe set the GitHub Copilot context to be a little bit lower than what the max context size is for the model. But
Sure. I hadn't thought about that.
Yeah, I'm still learning about that stuff. But anyway, I was using it as an opportunity to benchmark the different local models against each other. Yeah, so more to come there, but the Qwen dense model seems to work fairly well for coding agents, I would say.
Yeah, I've used that one on my Mac Mini, or not that one precisely. I actually am using the 3.5 mixture of experts.
9B?
Yeah, the 9 billion. And that one works pretty well for, like, again, very targeted stuff. Like if you give it an open-ended thing, and it has to fill up the context with a bunch of stuff, and it just doesn't do a great job.
Yeah, so we'll share more about that. If you want to talk about that kind of stuff, you can join the Discord. We have a thread going that's all of us sharing like different little tips and tricks and stuff that we are learning about these models. But we can move on to the news for the week of June 1st. We have some TypeScript news. So as part of Microsoft Build, Daniel Rosenwasser did give an update about what's new in the TypeScript ecosystem. The thing is that we've covered everything that's new. So this is not new news for anyone who listens to the show. But if you do want to listen to Daniel, I have a link to the 17-minute little live segment he did.
Mm-hmm.
So you can get the gist of what's going on in TypeScript. But basically, TypeScript 7 is out, right?
Mm-hmm.
that's
yeah. This will catch you up. Like if you missed the last 6 months, this 17 minutes will catch you up on the latest and greatest.
Exactly.
Nothing new has happened in the last since we've covered the TypeScript 6 to 7.
Yes. Cool. But we've got a big headliner, which is that guess who is joining Cloudflare. So if you remember, we've already covered that Astro not too long ago was acquired by Cloudflare. So that team joined Cloudflare. We've got another team that's now joined Cloudflare. You want to take a little guess at who that might be?
VoidZero.
VoidZero. Yeah. Look, you're looking at the show notes. You're like, I already know what this is.
I already know.
It's
VoidZero.
VoidZero.
I think I don't know if we said this publicly or not, but I think you called it like at the beginning of the year. Like we recorded maybe something that has not been released, and you were like, I think this is going to happen.
Yeah,
like,
I think
I wouldn't be surprised.
We'd have to I have it recorded, so at some point we'll have to release our procrastination predictions episode of the previous year. But we did record something, I think it was in February is when we recorded it. And it was because we got interrupted, and then we were going to continue the conversation, and that just never has not happened yet. But in there, I was like, I think that something's going to happen with Cloudflare, because they seem to be positioning themselves to vertically integrate a lot of this front-end tooling, because they acquired Astro, which gives them a framework, and now they've acquired the build tooling underneath as part of VoidZero. That's pretty cool. I think the team is apparently, seems happy to join. It seems like their philosophies are aligned. We said the same thing when Astro joined Cloudflare. It seems like their strategic philosophies are very, very similar. And so it seemed like a good acquisition to me at the time. And this one seems like a good acquisition as well.
Next on the news list is Angular 22 just dropped.
Mm-hmm.
And they have a whole video about it. They also have a big blog post about it. And I'll cover some of the highlights that kind of drew my eye. Signal forms are now finally ready to go. So these are ready to go. Signal forms were launched in V21. But they've been updated. They've added a bunch of documentation. A bunch of feedback was received by the community, and they did a lot of updates to make it composable, reactive, and ready to go. So if you were like, hey, I really want forms as signals, go check that out. The other thing that really caught my eye was the error boundary new keyword in a template. So you can do like an @boundary and use that to cordon off maybe problematic components. Like if you're doing like module federation or you're working in an MFE, which I've now forgotten what the acronym stands for. But if you're working in MFE, you're loading components over the network, perhaps, or module federation.
Micro front end.
Micro front end. I don't know why I
just a brain fart. Yeah,
brain farted on that one. This is super useful because a bad component can just wedge your entire app.
Yeah.
And that's not a thing you want in production. So,
Nope.
And especially if you have like umpteen teams working on the same front end, like tracking that down would not be great.
First of all, Godspeed. But second of all,
the Conway's Law problems abide.
Yes, exactly.
And then there's a couple other convenience things that I thought were pretty cool. Like there's the new @service decorator, which is kind of sugar for @injectable provided in root, which is like 99% of the time that's what you're doing for a service. So you can just do @service and then Bob's your uncle, you've got a service. The other thing to keep in mind with 22 is that on push is now the default change detection strategy. So if you upgrade and you're like, why is my stuff not working? Like, why aren't things updating? It might be because you have to think about your change detection. So that might be a thing to think about. There's a whole bunch more, but I'd say that those are like the big ones for me. There's a lot of quality of life stuff in here. One thing that you should definitely check out if you're going to upgrade Angular is they have a stupendous update guide that'll go step by step. So you can be like, hey, I'm on this version of Angular and I want to go to this version of Angular. And you can say like, oh, I have an advanced app. I want to use ng upgrade because I have Angular JS components in here. I'm on Windows. I'm not on Windows. I'm using Angular material. It'll literally give you a checklist that you can go and follow to update your app in place.
That's cool. How long does it take your team to adopt the Angular upgrades?
We try to do them pretty quick. We let them cook for like a little bit, but we try to do them pretty quick because usually it comes with a lot of boons for at least for our dev cycle. And that and the other thing, if you let Angular upgrades languish too long and like you're like 4 or 5 versions behind, upgrading becomes an incredible chore at that point. If you're upgrading one version at a time, it's usually pretty quick.
Nice.
But like if you get too far behind, upgrading in the past at least has been an incredible chore to jump multiple versions.
Nice. So good to be on that then.
Next up, we have some other TypeScript news from the TypeScript team on Blue Sky. Ryan Kavanaugh was talking about how they're changing how single character inference in template literals is changing in TypeScript 7.0. And TLDR, it's not a speed issue. It's actually a correctness issue. The single character template literals was actually behaving incorrectly in TypeScript 6. It was not consuming the full code point in the old version TSC. It was only doing one UTF-16 code unit. So like if you had like an emoji, like where you have a multi-byte encoding, it wasn't actually doing the right thing. It was just doing one code unit in TypeScript 6 versus like TSGo where it would do the full code point. So get the full character, the full glyph.
Nice.
Another one that was interesting from Rob Palmer on Blue Sky is they found a bug in TypeScript where they were looking at erasable syntax, and Masaki Hara found that some type syntax is unexpectedly not erasable. So, and in this case, it was a bug. Adding type assertions changed the precedence of the underlying JavaScript code. And then Rob has an example of this in action where it changed the order of operations of like arithmetic. So like if you did like, 1 plus 2 as number divided by 3, it would do 1 plus 2 in parens as number in parens divided by 3.
Oh.
Which this can't be omitted without parenthesizing. It would actually do it the arithmetic wrong. So
yeah. Well, that's good. So they're going to fix that.
Yep. That is a bug that got uncovered by the type stripping in Node's TypeScript support, which is pretty cool.
Nice. We do have in our security corner some PSAs. Finally, GitHub is making some changes. We had previously announced that they were going to make some changes. So they had the staged publishing, which they recently added. But now in npm 12, they're actually going to be disabling post-install scripts. They're going to be disabling allowing Git prefixes and remote prefixes to download dependencies from Git or download them from HTTPS URLs. And those will all be disabled by default. But if you install 11.16, right now you'll get deprecation notices for those so that you are prepared. I've already disabled those globally in my npm config, so I should be set up to upgrade to V12 once that comes out. But this means that all the major package managers finally will protect us from post-install malicious scripts by default. Of course, you can still enable it, but you can now create an allow list so that only allowed packages can have their lifecycle scripts running. So that's some good news, at least.
Yeah, the security beatings will continue until the defaults change.
Exactly. Yep. So finally, they seem to be making an impact. Hopefully, we'll also see more changes to the registry itself pretty soon. Next up from Socket, remember the mini Shai-Hulud campaign? Well, it's still ongoing, and unfortunately, it did hit some of the Red Hat Cloud Services npm packages. You can check the blog article to see which of those packages have been hit, but if the terms Red Hat Cloud Services mean anything to you, then you probably want to check that blog post out and double check that you're not depending on any of those. The other Socket article is that the latest version of pnpm now adds support for recognizing npm staged publishes. So again, this is being able to publish to a staging area before it hits the public so that malicious actors can't just immediately publish compromised packages without approval, maintainer approval. And we've switched to that in Excalibur. And now I get the emails all the time that there's been a new staged publish. So
yeah. And
that's good,
I regularly don't approve them for long periods of time, which is now a thing that we're going to have to contend with as a package that's downloaded a lot. I think it's important for us to do, but it's also like this whole new alert fatigue that we're going to have to make sure that we don't fall into.
Yep.
Hopefully the staged publishing gets a little better. We talked about this last episode, but it's not the best ergonomically yet.
No.
It is providing the function.
Yeah.
The function works.
The UX needs to be updated. I think what you could do is you could write a local app or something that will give you a push notification and then actually just show you the diff right there, so that you can just easily kind of see, I just need to look this over, or just email it to you, and then it'll provide a link. So it'll have the diff inside the email so you can actually see it.
Yeah,
right there.
And if it came from trusted publishing, like we could show a diff, and be confident that that's the diff.
Yeah. All right. We've got some library watches.
Yeah. The first one comes from Blue Sky user Condur. I am so sorry, but they just shipped something called modalyze v103, and this is just a small React modal library that supports multiple modals at once, and you can drag and drop it. It's written in TypeScript. Yeah, if you need like a little modal library and you want to check that out, go check that out.
That's nice.
The next one is from my game devs out there. There's a new library called ts-defold, which allows you to write your defold games in TypeScript. So this is super cool. Like if you're like a game dev and you like TypeScript like me, Excalibur, you can write your games in TypeScript. And then if you are a user of defold, you can now use the ts-defold project to write your games in.
That's cool. So it looks like Defold is a 2D and 3D cross-platform game engine.
That is right. Yeah, so check that out.
Okay, should we talk about some community highlights?
We should.
Cool. Well, one thing that I saw on Blue Sky was from All Things Smitty, and it's TypeScript tips everybody should know. And there are 15 tips, and they're all really good. And they are not written by an AI. They're written by Matt Smith. So these are nice practical tips, and each one has a very small, here's why it's nice and why it matters. But I'll give you some examples. Prefer unknown over any. A lot of type safety starts here. Most TypeScript problems start with when any enters the system. So instead of using any, use unknown. It forces validation, preserves safety, and prevents type leakage. And this one I love, of course. Let type inference do the work. The best TypeScript code often has fewer explicit types than beginners expect. So instead of const name :string equals eta. It's just const name equals eta because TypeScript can infer that the type is string.
Mm-hmm.
So it scales better than annotation. Now, of course, there's nuances to all of this, and we've talked about that before. But this is a great sort of list of like, here's things you should just do by default. And then once you know these like patterns and rules, then you can break them because then you understand why.
Mm-hmm. I liked the last one on this list, which I think is important to remember, is that type safe does not mean runtime safe.
Yes. Hey, you can check out my new course that's going to be coming out to learn more about that. Because I have a clip on TypeScript safety is not the same as runtime safety. Cool. Next up, this I saw on Reddit. This is from Nico. He's the creator of numpy-ts. And it's been fun to sort of watch the evolution of numpy-ts because each of the big announcements that they've had, we've shared here on the podcast. The first one, when I saw it, it was like 2 times slower than native NumPy, or even maybe more than that. And then they made an update to use some WASM bindings or something like that. And then it became like only a small order of magnitude slower. And now it's actually 1.14 times faster than native NumPy. And the reason is because he was able to reduce memory copying. So this blog post goes into a deep dive into the mechanics of that and how they were able to move array usage from TypeScript over to WASM to have WASM own the memory, and how greatly that sped things up.
Makes sense.
It's a really cool post.
Next is kind of a fun one, and this is kind of in the vein of Doom in TypeScript types, but this is SHA-256 implemented in the TypeScript type system. So this is not like a TypeScript program that does it. This is the TypeScript types generate the SHA.
They hash. They'll hash your whatever string or type or whatever.
It'll do whatever string you have as an input. It'll go ahead and the type will be the SHA-256 hash.
That's really funny.
And this was via our friends at Michigan TypeScript on Blue Sky. And the author of this was Monty Anderson. And you can find this repo at Monty Anderson /TS-SHA-256 on GitHub. But this is absolutely hilarious, and I love it.
That's awesome. So last week, JSHeroes at the conference happened, and now all the talks are out. So there's a few talks that I saw being rebleeded all over the place. One of them was by Daniel Rowe, and it's called Working Backwards, and it's about how to build a community and finding product market fit in open source, including the untold story of npmx.dev. So this one I sent to Eric specifically to be like, this one's for you. But yes. I think everybody would be interested in this. Daniel, you may know, is the creator of Nuxt, and also I think was the original steward and like brainchild for npmx.dev. And then the other one is Dead Code Shouldn't Exist: How We Remove 28,000 Lines of Code One Nip at a Time. Or sorry, one knip at a time. Because it's pronounced knip. And this is by TK Dodo, which is Dominique Dorfmeister, who works on the TanStack and who you may know from like TanStack Query and such. So this is about, removing code using knip, the tool that helps you slim down your code base. So I think that one will be pretty cool and is also pretty relevant to what I'm trying to do lately with my bundle size, trying to trim it down. Next up, we have a blog post by Pawel. And I cannot say the title of the post out loud, but it is basically F/thank you. And so some of it is, hey, and this is sort of what we talked about in the last episode with Dr. Axel taking his blog offline, where it seems like model companies do not care about the web and they're trying to get rid of links and don't cite their sources unless you're using the research or web search kind of functionality. But that's only a small part of the blog post. The rest of it is a thank you to real human people that have been inspiring and have done really awesome work. These are names that you'll probably recognize, like Chris Koye, Dr. Axel, Ben Myers, Josh Como, Stefan Judas, Kyle Simpson, Andy Bell, and many others, and Jake Archibald, who I think we've featured pretty much all of these people on the podcast because they're part of the community, and they are putting out amazing work. And so this was inspired by another blog post that was called Reach Out and Say Thanks by Kevin Pawel. And so thank you to all these people. And thank you to Pawel for putting this together. Hopefully, this is going to inspire some more thanking blog posts that we can link to too.
Next, I have a podcast interview with Kelsey Hightower. Now, this is not necessarily TypeScript, but I think it's an absolute amazing interview with Kelsey. That guy is super sharp, and I think it would behoove anyone to listen to this whole thing. I really liked his take and his philosophy on software in general, so I think this is applicable to everyone. And the maybe the two pithy things in this talk that I'll leave you with, or this interview that I'll leave you with, is we're just trying to solve human problems, and not all problems require software.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought those were two pithy statements, like near the end, that really resonated with me. And and you should watch the whole thing. Like, it's an amazing journey throughout his career. Yeah.
And just as a reminder, if you don't know, Kelsey Hightower, Kubernetes.
Mr. Kubernetes.
Mr. Kubernetes, that's right.
Next on the list, I have a YouTube video by Modern Languages Don't Look Like C by Rats159, which is a very online username. Mostly, it's talking about how modern languages like Zig and Odin and Nim and others are looking for explicit separation. So the Pascal types, like, for example, you do colon type, name colon type, kind of removes ambiguity and simplifies the grammar. Also feels like you're not repeating yourself. How modern sensibilities are adding like tooling support. So the way that we want to work with types wants to interact with tooling. How moving left to right removes the need to track precedence, like in modern languages. So this is an interesting video. Go check it out. It's really thought-provoking about language design.
Nice. That's cool. Next up, this is a more interesting read if you like strategy stuff, which if you are a listener of the show, you know that we like that. This is about what Bun can tell us about AI, open source, and Anthropic. And it's by Stephen O'Grady from RedMonk. RedMonk is a analyst firm, but they focus on dev tools, which is pretty cool. And basically, they go into a lot of the detail and a lot of the metrics of, like, first of all, how has Bun evolved since its acquisition? And the too long didn't read is that most of the code committed to Bun now is by machines, by Claude. And some of the humans that were original team members have backed off. So we don't know why that is, but for sure, human commits have gone way, way, way down. And that includes from Jared himself too. So it'll be interesting because they say it's not like it's barely been a year of AI contributions, and half that as employees of one of the most visible and important AI companies on the planet. So we won't and can't know the answers to, like, will AI continue to increase its percentage of code committed at the expense of humans, or will a natural equilibrium evolve over time? What if any, tech debt and learned helplessness is being accrued by the Bun team by relying so heavily on AI? We're not going to know these answers yet because there just hasn't been enough time that's passed. But they say that it seems clear that when looking at how core infrastructure products might be impacted by rising AI contributions, Bun will be an important data point to monitor. And that I definitely agree with, because those are the types of things that I think about, is like moving fast also can increase your tech debt if you're not careful. And I know that firsthand by reviewing the code that these clankers write. When like this migration that I'm doing, I'm not just going to like accept, you know what I mean? I'm not going to just press merge on it because I need to see, like, what code did it actually do? And also, did it over eagerly like change my code to be more verbose when it could have been more succinct and things like that?
Yeah. My developing thesis around LLMs is that they're really good at adding entropy to the code base.
Yeah.
And if you're not careful, you might find yourself in, tech debt bankruptcy.
Yes.
Where like no one, not even the most expensive context window, can understand what's written.
Yes, exactly. Okay, we do have a Bleet of the week. Hit me with it.
All right, this is from ed3d.net, and they're replying to a thread about TypeScript, but they say, I have long been a type pervert. I was using branded types in TypeScript long before it was cool, and I'm very smug.
I just like the phrase type pervert.
Type pervert. That's going to be my new thing. Maybe not. Scratch that from the record.
Yep. Cool. Do you have any cool links you came across this week?
Yes, I have been watching this lovely creator on YouTube. The YouTube channel is Birdbrain, and they make an e-bike motor from scratch.
What?
Using like a 3D printer and magnets.
What?
And some engineering. And it's cool.
That's wild.
They make an e-bike motor that's actually useful, and it's amazing. Like, I've been watching this whole series. I recommend checking out all of Birdbrain's videos.
That's cool. I just have a really simple one. It's one of those like visual, what do you call it?
Illusions?
Illusions. Yes, thank you. It's one of those visual illusions where there's 9 purple dots, but the one that you stare at becomes more purple. And it's just sort of like mind bending. Like, how is this possible? I don't understand. But they do quote a study, so I'm sure that maybe this study explains. But I think the Too Long didn't read that they say, this is shared by Peter Coles. It happens because your eyes have lower sensitivity to blue light at the center of your field of view. Isn't that interesting?
That is weird.
Yeah.
It's time for the Minnesota long goodbye. So what's percolating in that noggin of yours?
Well, I think that the VoidZero thing is interesting. It does change the landscape, which is pretty cool, I think. And so I didn't read like the full blog post, but if it probably wasn't super clear, but like it's going to stay open source. Like Vite is going to stay open source. It'll be interesting to see what happens to Vite Plus. So in the blog post, they say, despite the rapidly growing adoption of our tools, we haven't yet solved monetization. Monetizing tooling, especially open source software, has proven to be quite challenging. Yep. We experimented with a mixed licensing model for Vite Plus, but it didn't feel right. Our conclusion was that we needed to sell a service with great synergy with our open source tooling without creating perverse incentives that distort our roadmaps and priorities. That is why we open sourced Vite Plus under the MIT license and started working on Void, a Vite native deployment platform built on top of Cloudflare. And I think that this is why I think that it makes sense, because they were already building on top of Cloudflare. Why rebuild Cloudflare? You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like, workers are already pretty honed in, and they're using Wrangler. And I think what I said during our prediction episode was, it doesn't make sense to me, like, when you have these great tools available like Vite, why you need to maintain Wrangler. And I feel like Cloudflare is going to make a move to like get rid of Wrangler, and I think that this is the way that they do it.
Sure.
You know, because why use Wrangler when you've got Vite and now you've got Void, right?
Right.
So yeah, I think that that's going to be interesting. The thing with Wrangler is that it is framework or library agnostic. So maybe it will depend on like, are they just going to align on Vite as like the underlying thing, or will they use some of the other tools out of VoidZero's ecosystem to do it? Like they could probably use roll down at the bare minimum and things like that.
Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah.
I think you're probably on the money there, and I don't have anything to contribute to that. Like, I feel like this is a play that feels like they're coming for
Next.js,
Netlify and Vercel's launch.
Yes. Yep.
And I think, Cloudflare's been doing this whole, like, they started as just the CDN.
Yep.
And they've kind of been expanding left, it feels like, towards the actual software. And now with this acquisition, like, we're there.
Yeah, or even thinking instead of shifting left, I mean, shifting down too. Like I said, the words vertical integration. If you think of the software supply chain, like they are sort of vertically integrating, right? Because they start at the top where they've got the network layer. So they own all the network layer. Then they move down into workers, right? Which was still mostly at the network layer. But then they introduced Wrangler, which is a dev tool, right? But it didn't really do much, or it doesn't really do much except for being able to run workers locally, like in an emulated mode, and then deploying them out. But what they were kind of missing was like the ability to build stuff using Wrangler. And so they've introduced SDKs, like they have the worker SDK, the pages SDK, managed agents. They've got the agents SDK, right? So they're expanding more into the, dev tooling infrastructure. And now with Astro, they acquired a framework, right? So they got a server side and client side rendering framework that is technology agnostic, which fits with the Wrangler ethos that it doesn't. You can bring your own framework to Cloudflare, right? That's how their ethos has been. And then Vite also is kind of framework agnostic, like it's just the build chain, right? So you can still, I think you'll still be able to bring your own framework to Cloudflare, but they're going to have a first-party tool chain that if you want to use, they'll be able to better support so that you can get closer to being able to do just Wrangler deploy your Vite app and bam, you've got a Vite app that's live running. So it'll be interesting to see where it goes, but I think it was a good move on their part.
Yeah, no, for sure. And, this just, hindsight is 2020, but like the environments API makes a lot of sense.
Yes.
Like if you're thinking about it, like we want to be able to emulate the different platforms that we're going to be running on and be able to develop against those. And then it's like, oh, okay, well, makes sense that you want to be able to have Cloudflare worker environment work really nice.
Yes. Cool. That's all I had.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's a quick one this week.
That's good. I think the plan is, just so everybody knows, I'm going to be gone this weekend because summer has started, by the way. I didn't even mention that as part of the personal news, but this week is really the first week of summer for us. So the kids are out of school. My wife is done with her work, and I'm just wrapping up this course. And once this course is done, I'll be off for the summer. So summertime is here. And so we are going to be busy doing stuff. And one of those first things is going to a family reunion.
Yeah.
So we're doing that this weekend. But the next week's episode should still come out on time-ish. I think I'll be able to meet, and we'll be able to get it out by Tuesday or Thursday. But yeah. So thanks for bearing with us, everybody. I know this episode came out a little later this week, but I had the kids all 3 days from Monday to Wednesday, so I could not meet during the day.
I had the goblin as well the last 3 days, and I passed out at 9 p.m.
Yep.
When we were supposed to record.
That's all good. All right. Well, everybody have a good rest of the week, and we'll see you next week.
See you next time.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Hi, everyone. This is Kamran. I just wanted to thank you for listening to the show, and we hope you enjoyed the episode. If you want to see the show notes, you can check your podcast player or go to typescript.fm, where you'll see a list of all the episodes. If you enjoyed the show, tell your friends, and please rate it on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, because that's how the show grows and gets discovered by more people. If you want to suggest news or a project that should be covered, or just want to say hi, email us at feedback@typescript.fm. If you want to follow us on social, we're both active on Blue Sky. I'm at kamronigus.com, and Eric is at ericonerheim.com. You can also follow the show directly at typescript.fm.